On the map, the Strait of Malacca looks like a thin scratch between Malaysia and Indonesia. In real life, it is one of the tightest throats on Earth for global shipping, one of the places where the whole world's supply chain has to squeeze through. Now add what's inside those ships. Huge energy flows pass here. Crude oil, oil products, and other fuels headed toward fast-growing Asian economies. The numbers are measured in tens of millions of barrels per day in recent years. Even parts of the clean energy supply chain lean on the same route. And it's not just tankers. Around 94,000 ships pass through the Malacca area each year. At the southern end of that traffic, Singapore, tiny on land, handles a huge share of the stopping, sorting, fueling, and rerouting that keeps those ships profitable. But even this throat has limits. The Malacca-Singapore passage is relatively shallow in places, and very large tankers sometimes use deeper alternative routes instead. That detail matters because it shows a big truth. Shipping always looks for backups, even when the main route is shorter. In 2024, Singapore set a record for container throughput, 41.12 million TEUs. A TEU is a standard 20-foot container, the basic unit ports use to count how much they handle. That record is not just bragging right. Ports don't earn power by being loud. They earn it by being useful to everyone, every day. Here's the part most people miss. About 90% of Singapore's container throughput is transshipment. That means most containers are not for Singapore. They are moved from one ship to another, like a global airport hub just on water. That hub role is why Singapore sits at the center of so many shipping schedules. So when someone says, Thailand could build a shortcut that ends Singapore, it sounds like a movie plot. But it's not fiction. It's a real idea tied to a real piece of geography, the Isthmus in southern Thailand. And it keeps coming back because the stakes are real. The Atlas Isthmus is the narrow neck of Thailand, where the land pinches between the Andaman Sea on one side and the Gulf of Thailand on the other. If you cut a channel across that neck, ships could avoid sailing down to Singapore and then back up again. On paper, it looks like a simple slice through the map. This is not a new dream. Thailand has debated some version of a Kra Canal for generations. The idea has surfaced again and again with different routes, different backers, and different political moments. And just as often, it has stalled. The promise is easy to sell. If ships can skip the detour around the Malay Peninsula, they can save time and fuel. Estimates like around 48 hours saved get repeated a lot, depending on where the ship is going and what kind of ship it is. But Kra Canal is not one single blueprint. Some proposals talk about roughly 50 kilometers of canal. Others propose routes around 100 kilometers or more. Some versions describe a very deep channel and a very wide channel built for two-way traffic and very large ships. Then comes the number that decides everything: cost. Credible reporting has long put canal price tags in the tens of billions of dollars, with estimates often quoted around $20 to $30 billion for the canal itself. And that's before you count ports, roads, rail, security, compensation, and years of delays. Delays are where mega projects double in price. There's also a political cost. A canal isn't just concrete and dredgers. It's land rights, local livelihoods, environmental fights, and national arguments about who benefits and who pays. So what about the title's $200 billion? Here's the twist. That kind of number is usually not the digging cost. The bigger figure is the value of trade and services that could be pulled toward or pushed away from Singapore's hub. In other words, the short count isn't just a trench, it's a lever. To understand the threat, you have to understand the machine. Singapore's port is not one port. It's a system that can take a container off one ship and move it onto another fast, with high reliability. When schedules are tight, reliability is money. And Singapore isn't just a place ships pass by, it's a place ships choose to stop. A hub grows because everyone wants to connect to everyone else. Then there's fuel. Singapore is the world's largest bunkering hub, meaning ships come here to buy marine fuel. On January 16, 2024, public reporting cited Singapore data showing that 2024 bunker sales hit a record 59.92 million metric tons. That matters because a ship that fuels in a port is already tied into that port's services. And the port is only the visible part. A maritime hub also means shipping finance, insurance, ship management, repairs, legal services, and dispute resolution. These are sticky advantages. Even if a ship could take a different route, the paperwork, money, and expertise don't move overnight. So you might think a canal changes everything, but shipping doesn't move like water. Shipping moves like habit, contracts, and trust. The canal has to be so good that shipping companies are willing to reroute routes, rebuild schedules, and take risks on a new hub. If a true sea-level canal opened across southern Thailand, some traffic would likely divert, especially routes where the time and fuel savings are real. Analysts have modeled potential benefits like shorter sailing distances and lower fuel use. That sounds small until you multiply it by thousands of voyages. And then the geopolitics show up. For decades, strategists have worried about how much Asian trade and energy depends on the Malacca and Singapore Straits. In Chinese discussions, this is often called the Malacca Dilemma, the fear that a crisis could choke off vital flows through a narrow passage. But every shortcut creates new problems. A canal would cut through sensitive landscapes, change water movement, and force huge decisions about dredging, waste rock, and long-term maintenance. It would also slice across Thailand's narrow south, raising hard questions about local impacts and national unity. Security is another bill you can't ignore. The Malacca and Singapore Straits are managed through cooperation, including safety, environmental protection, and maritime security. Build a new global waterway, and you inherit those responsibilities on a giant scale. And here's the dark irony. A canal meant to reduce vulnerability could become a new vulnerability. A brand new canal would be a choke point by design. The world would have to plan around it. If that feels abstract, think about what happens when choke points are disrupted. Ships don't just wait, they reroute. Insurance costs jump. Delivery dates break, sometimes for weeks. The ripple can move from ports to factories to store shelves. Now for the biggest reality check. In recent years, Thailand's headline project has not been dig a canal. It has been a land bridge. 2 ports on 2 coasts linked by road and rail across about 90 kilometers of southern Thailand. The numbers are still huge. On October 16, 2023, public reporting described Thailand pitching the land bridge at around 1 trillion baht, roughly $28 billion at the time. The route, often discussed, links the Andaman side province of Ranong to the Gulf side province of Chumphon, built to move containers across land instead of through the Strait of Malacca. Supporters say the land bridge could shorten shipping time by up to 4 days on some routes, but there's a catch that changes the whole story. Ships can't just sail through a land bridge. Cargo must be unloaded, moved across land, and loaded again, like switching planes at an airport, but with cranes, trains, and trucks. That extra handling is not a small detail. It's the difference between a new ocean highway and a new transshipment hub. And if this project succeeds, it may not erase Singapore. It may try to copy the part of Singapore that makes the most money, being the place where cargo changes hands. So, would any of this end Singapore? That's the wrong question. A new route can shift some flows, but Singapore's hub is also built on trust, dense connections, and a full ecosystem of services. These advantages are hard to transplant. And Singapore has faced rivals before. Nearby ports in the region have grown fast, trying to capture more of the same shipping business. Singapore's answer has been to keep the whole hub package strong: speed, connectivity, fuel, and services, so ship owners still want to stop here even when other options exist. And Singapore isn't standing still. Tuas Port officially opened on September 1, 2022, and it's designed to scale up in phases. When completed in the 2040s, Singapore says Tuas Port is targeted to handle 65 million TEUs. That's a future-sized bet on staying a hub. And the hub story goes beyond containers. Singapore is also pushing into cleaner fuels and new bunkering options. Public reporting has also noted that in 2024, sales of alternative bunker fuels in Singapore passed 1 million tons for the first time. The hub is trying to stay useful as shipping changes. Even Thailand's leaders have tried to frame the land bridge as a complement, not a direct attack. On April 8, 2024, Thailand's Prime Minister said the project would complement Singapore's port, not compete with it. Because in the real world, ports often win by connecting, not by killing each other. So here's the honest ending. A Kra Canal, if it ever happens, could pull some time-sensitive routes away from the Malacca-Singapore corridor. A Thai land bridge, if built and run well, could create a rival transfer hub on Thai soil. Either way, Singapore would feel pressure, but end is a headline word, not an engineering forecast. The deeper story is what this debate reveals about the modern world. We are building power out of routes, straits, canals, ports, rail lines, data links, and sometimes the biggest battle isn't over land or sea, it's over which map everyone else has to follow.